Andreas is going to join us first. He's CEO of the Ocean Conservancy, and he's going to speak about how every second breath we take comes from the ocean. Andreas. Okay, we'll get you situated, but I'm breathless waiting for your speech.
Take a deep breath from the ocean. Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk about the ocean and a report from the front lines. And I had a really nice, slick presentation, and it was very safe. And I realized last night what a supportive and great crowd this is. So I tossed it, and I'm going to speak from the heart. So it's going to be a little bumpy, but it's going to be actually what's on my mind these days, right? And what is most central on my mind is that this ocean advocate is out of answers. Usually a environmentalist has always the same basic spiel, right? The environmental advocate will tell you, there's something incredibly precious out there, and there's a bad man who wants to mess it up, right? And support me, and I will find a way to stop the bad man. It's the make the bad man stop theory of advocacy. You have to have a bunch of things that are in place for that to work. You have to know what's wrong, you have to know how to fix it, and you have to know who the culprit is. And we don't know any of these things anymore as far as the ocean. It's a fundamentally adaptive story, and we don't know where it's going. Because what the ocean basically is, it's an essential system, we all know that. It's a very complex system, and it's a complex system under pressure. And what do complex systems under pressure do is they have what you call emergent behavior, right? They do things that are emergent in the sense that we don't see them coming. We don't really know what it's going to be. So what do you do if you have an essential system that is basically going all over the map? It's a existential problem, is it not? It's like you're driving a Ferrari in an ice storm across the Khyber Pass, and you're trying to figure out, at speed, right? And you're trying to figure out what to do. That's basically the position that we're in. So what I want to do is basically talk a little bit about the elements of that, and then we'll talk about what we actually need to do. And it's a cry for help, right? So I don't need to preach to you how essential the ocean is, right? Without it, we would either starve or burn or choke. Pick your poison. It is absolutely at the center of life in the world. And you are knowledgeable enough, I don't need to sort of espouse on that. What I do want to espouse on is that even if we did nothing to the ocean, even if it was in its natural equilibrium, oh boy, what a chaotic equilibrium that really is, right? It's an incredibly chaotic system. On the physical side and on the biological side. I mean, on the physical side, it puts the atmosphere to shame, right? Because not only do you have currents and heat to deal with, you have unbelievably complex chemistry to deal with. You have acidity, you have salinity, you have trace chemicals. The physical system of the ocean is unbelievably complex. Then you have the biological system, which is off the charts, right? We've just begun to make a little progress. Even predicting what tomorrow's fish population is going to be is incredibly difficult. Because if you think about it, let's take an example. A female snapper lays 30,000 eggs every 3 months, right? Puts those eggs out there into the water, and what determines the survival of these eggs is a complex brew of temperature and nutrients and physical factors and so on and so forth, right? And sometimes the survival of that is sometimes 99% die and sometimes 97% die. Right? So what happens to that brood in the water is vastly more important for next year's population than how many mothers there were. In other words, you cannot extrapolate from this year's fish population into next year's fish population. You cannot say, here's a pride of lions of X, and so therefore next year's pride of lion is going to be Y. It doesn't work in the water. And then you have this little thing called the interface between the physical world and the biological world. So what does change in the biological world as the physical world changes in the ocean? That interface is largely unknown. We don't understand it, right? We don't even know how much calcium carbonate there is in the water. We don't understand that within 2 orders of magnitude. So now we add acidity to it and so on and so forth, right? So all that to say, it's even in its natural state, this is one fluctuating blob. The only thing that I know of that is probably as complex of the ocean is the internet. But the internet helps us because it consists of bits and bytes. It is data. In the ocean, you have the additional step of having to get the data, right? Okay, so what are we doing with the system? We're putting it under stress. We're adding heat. We're adding acidity. We're adding plastic, right? We're adding nitrogen, algae blooms, and we're taking out fish, lots of fish. There's 700 million tons of fish in the sea. We're taking out somewhere around 100 to 150 million tons of that, mostly from the top, mostly predators, right? Vast effects on the ecosystem. So we're stressing it, right? So what do we do, right? The advocates do, and so on and so forth. We are only, and I'm going to get Rumsfeldian on you, and I'm sorry. I know he's not your favorite guy, probably, not in this room. But remember when Rumsfeld was talking about the known known and the known unknowns and so on? We have safely ensconced ourselves in the known known territory, right? We're working on the stuff where we know where it's coming. We know the ontology of it. Here, we know a certain manifestation. Ocean level is rising, right? And we know the epistemology of it. In other words, we know what we can know. We know what to do about it and what we can know about it. So ocean level is rising, an estuary will drown, therefore we're going to have to build some sluice gates and restore some oyster reefs. That I can deal with, right? Fish drops are dropping, tell the bad man to catch fewer fish. That I can do, right? But that's like fixing the taillight on that Ferrari going across the Khyber Pass. That's not going to do it anymore. We need to wade into the known unknowns, right? And so the known unknowns is where I see something is happening, but I don't know why, I don't know where it's going, I have no way to predict it, I don't even know what I can know. I don't even know the basic epistemology of the thing, right? So one example is, I had a fisherman from Maine tell me the other day, Andreas, going fishing in Maine right now is like you have a kitty of $500, you're sitting down at a $10 ante poker game, and you're realizing after the first hand is dealt that we're not playing poker anymore. The game's shifting, right? So you have 50 tries to learn not only learn the new game, but outperform all the others. Oh, and by the way, every 10 games, the rules change again, so you're basically playing Calvin ball, right? So what do I do? And I said, I have no idea. Right? That's the new reality. Should I buy a new boat? Should I go out? Should I chase these stocks as they're following the cooler water? Or should I stay in place and wait for what comes in? Should I get new gear? Right? Should I tell my son to go into the business? These are basically known unknown problems. Right? And then we have the unknown problems. And there be dragons. Right? That's the really scary stuff. That's the true emergent behavior. And there are some scenarios, 5 minutes. There's some scenarios out there which are within the realm of the possible that are sort of concerning, right? We could envision changes in the physical and chemical makeup of the ocean which would have fundamental effects on the food chain. Right? So one example, the beautiful article two weeks ago on how the roaring 40s, where it blows a lot, right? Southern Ocean, there's a lot of froth in the water, and the wind out of the froth picks up pieces of plankton, and those pieces of plankton become the principal seeding agents of clouds. Wow. So if we mess with that plankton and it goes away, right, we're in a whole new loop there because there's no more clouds down there, or much fewer clouds, which messes again with the plankton and so on and so forth, right? So we could imagine, for example, that there's such stratification now between warmer and cooler layers or more or less salty layers that the whole exchange of nitrogen is imperiled, or that the upwelling is imperiled, which are the world's richest fisheries, or any number of sort of scenarios where the physical world of the ocean, because of extra acidity, extra heat, changes to the point, right, where we have catastrophic breakdowns in biology. And we have currently no way of telling that. We just had over 2 billion starfish and sea urchins die off the coast of California, and all we could do is to sit back and say, so that just happened. right? We have no clue. We have no clue what just happened. It was an algae bloom. Where did the algae bloom come from? There was no nitrogen. Northern California is pretty nitrogen-free. There's no Mississippi pumping nitrogen there, right? What's going on? We don't know. The only hope that we really have is that if we can figure out, this system, or that our knowledge of this complex system and the stress it's under grows at the same rate at which we're messing it up, right? And that we cannot do as pure oceanographers or ecologists or anything like that. That's a moonshot, right? But there's hope. So we're working at Ocean Conservancy, we're working now with folks from artificial intelligence, behavioral economist, agent-based modeler, complex network modelers, Google, Goldman Sachs, Santa Fe Institute folks, complex system folks, and so on what I call ocean epistemology, which is to figure out what is knowable, right? Is it possible, the naive question is it possible to throw all the data that we have about the ocean, and we have a lot of physical data, not so much biological, but is it possible, very naively, to throw them all into the hopper and get the best internet security guys working on finding the patterns, finding out what's going wrong? Where is it going off kilter, right? Probably not yet. We're not quite there yet. If not, then where can we start? Now it gets more interesting. Can we start at finding the thresholds where if you increase the pressure on the system, it goes into a nonlinear shift and becomes permanently different, right? Can we think about scenarios where we know that certain physical scenarios would have catastrophic effects on biota, and we can at least figure out what might happen there? Can we work backwards from what we can actually do about ocean management, such as we can fish less, or we can put fewer nitrogens in the Mississippi, or whatever, and go from there, right? So what it takes to solve this, and the guys, I mean, especially the internet guys, the folks that worry about internet security and pattern recognition at that grand scale, the big data guys, they're actually confident that we can get there, right? And this has also implications, you know, if you're atmospheric modeler, is my friend Dave Yarnold from Audubon still here? I don't know. If you're doing bird work and so on, same exact thing, right? We might be able to actually finally get to a systems view of the world that allows us not to tell exactly when and where, but what. And the picture I have in my mind is, if I tell you that there's a 70% probability that there's going to be an earthquake in San Francisco of 7.8, right, within the next 30 years, do you think that might have something to do with how the building codes of San Francisco evolve, right? I don't need to tell you when, but that's pretty powerful information, right? That's what we're trying to get to right now. The call to arms is that we need to build, in order to do that, right, a really powerful open expert system with all kinds of disciplines. We're building massive models to do this, and we need disciplines from literally from physical oceanography all the way to behavioral economics, complex system, an amazing array of experts to help do that, and it's a race against time that we can figure out basically what is knowable, where is it taking us, and what does it mean in terms of the actions that we have to take now about the ocean. That's the core task of oceanography right now. It's deeply adaptive. I sure hope you all get the CO2 stuff under control soon, right? But even if you do, as we all know, it's even at 2 degrees, and at the more probable 3.5 degrees, right? The nonlinear effects in the ocean are going to be stupendous, and we have to do this work. So that was my off-the-cuff, was really on my mind these days talk. I hope I'm not too far over. Thank you.